backup quarterback comes in as a spark for the other team. How big was the pressure you guys were able to put on Shedeur to keep him off balance?
And I'm so glad you asked that. I should have said more about that in the team post meeting. I mean, first of all, the defense. I think they gave up 187 yards. Okay, the pressure, the pass rush was incredible, especially in the second half.
This ain't Madden. You don't just take out one quarterback and put another quarterback in and expect success to happen, especially when you haven't had any reps with the ones. When it comes to the play calling, what play calls are you going to be able to call for a quarterback that hasn't had any reps with the ones? You don't know what he does well, what he doesn't done, you don't know what he does well. You don't know what he's not going to be good at because there's no chemistry.
So John Harbaugh just dropped a comment about Shedeur Sanders that has the whole NFL world buzzing right now. And let me be clear, this wasn't some empty coach talk. This was a Hall of Fame level coach sending a heavy message toward Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns without ever saying their names. And here's where things get wild. Coach Prime was emotional yesterday. Shannon Sharpe went on a 4-minute explosion calling the whole situation malpractice. And once you hear the full breakdown, you'll understand why people are calling this one of the messiest front office setups we've seen in years. I'm not pretending I'm detached here because I'm not. I've been around Shedeur, I've talked with Shiloh, with Deion Sanders Jr., with the whole Sanders family. So when I say what's going on in Cleveland is completely unacceptable, I'm speaking from real conversations and real moments, not from random internet guesses. What this young man is dealing with behind the scenes would shock a lot of people, so we need to start from the top because this situation has layers, and each layer gets messier. Dillon Gabriel goes down with a concussion against the Saints. The Browns are falling apart, the offense looks flat, and Stefanski is basically forced to throw Shedeur Sanders into the game.
Point in time. So you don't think Dillon Gabriel could possibly get hurt? He can't possibly bring a knee, bring a shoulder, get concussion. There's no possible way anything could possibly go wrong that you want to get Shedeur like one rep with the ones, 2 reps with the ones. I ain't saying split it 50-50. I understand that. But even when John was taking the majority of the reps, John, if we did 10 reps in a period, the backup would take 2. Just in case. So for Shedeur Sanders, here we are in week 11. The man got drafted in May. And at no point in time had he taken one snap with the one.
But here's the part almost nobody knew until recently. That moment was the first time Shedeur had ever taken a snap with the actual starting offense. Not in training camp, not in practices, not in walkthroughs. His very first real reps with the first team unit came in a live NFL game while the season was hanging by a thread. That is unbelievable. Think about the timeline for a second. Shedeur Sanders got drafted in May. We're now in week 11. That's 6 months. 6 months of practices, meetings, film sessions, and chances to get the backup quarterback a little work with the starters. And Stefanski didn't give him a thing. No reps, no rhythm, no timing, nothing at all. You're telling me that in all those sessions, Gabriel couldn't give up even 2 out of 10 snaps for the backup quarterback? You're telling me there wasn't one moment where Stefanski thought, hey, maybe we should prepare the guy we drafted in case something happens? That's not strategy, that's neglect. And the part that makes this hit even harder? John Harbaugh, whether he intended to or not, exposed the whole setup with just a couple of sentences. Now you might be wondering, okay, what did Harbaugh actually say? Let me walk you through it because this is where the whole thing flips. A reporter asked Harbaugh how you prepare for a backup quarterback who doesn't have much film. And Harbaugh's answer was smooth, sharp, and honestly, kind of devastating for Cleveland. He said, you practice your game plan, and the game plan was going to be good for their offensive system. They're not going to change who they are. You don't know how the quarterback's going to look exactly, but you just got to kind of take care of your own business. Sounds basic, right? Sounds like standard coach language, but when you really listen, he dropped a reality check. He said that when a backup quarterback comes in, you don't throw out the whole defensive plan because the offense won't change that dramatically. The plays don't change. The scheme doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the person taking the snaps. So here's the question every fan in the country is asking right now. Why didn't Kevin Stefanski prepare Shedeur to run that same offense? Why didn't he give him the reps he needed to develop timing with the receivers, cadence with the center, and rhythm with the play calls? Why wouldn't you prepare your second-round pick for the moment every team eventually faces? Your backup stepping in when the starter goes down? Harbaugh has been in this league for decades, and he's watched backup quarterbacks step in and ball out because they were prepared. He's also seen backups fall apart because they were thrown in cold with no rhythm and no chemistry. And what he was really saying, without saying it directly, is that preparation matters. Timing with the starters matters. Understanding the offense matters, and the Browns failed Shedeur Sanders in every category. But here's where the whole story shifts into something deeper, something emotional, something you could feel through the screen. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders himself, spoke yesterday, and his voice was cracking the entire time.
Development. And from the whole beginning, all we was hearing was developing Shedeur. Shedeur needed to be developed. I understand all of that, but to me, I feel like the Browns has already damaged Shedeur mentally. Let him go somewhere else and get developed for real. Get him out of Cleveland. Y'all don't care, never cared, and now everybody is going to rally around him because I know what Shedeur is going to.
You could hear the pain in every word he got out. He said watching Shedeur play brought him to tears because that they've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Then he dropped a line that hit everyone in the room hard. He said, Shedeur Sanders has been on this football team since May. For him not to receive any reps, not knowing where a wide receiver was going to be after a route, not knowing anything, man, that is critical to a quarterback's development. And that wasn't even the part that shook Cleveland fans the most. Prime followed it with something intense, something honest, something a father says when he's tired of watching people mishandle his son. He said, I feel like the Browns have already damaged Shadow, mentally. Let him go somewhere else and get developed. For real, get him out of Cleveland. Y'all don't care, never cared. Those are heavy words from a father who feels like his son was thrown into a broken situation. And before anyone tries to say Prime was being dramatic or overprotective, let's ask one simple question. If you spent years training your son, watching him dominate at Jackson State, then dominate at Colorado, then finally reach the NFL, and the team that drafted him refused to develop him, refused to give him real practice reps, refused to even build chemistry with him, wouldn't you feel emotional too? Wouldn't you feel frustration rising, knowing this isn't about entitlement at all? This is about basic development that every backup quarterback in the league gets, except Shedeur Sanders. And speaking of frustration, Shannon Sharpe didn't hold anything back on Nightcap last night. He exploded with a 4-minute rant that had Chad Ochocinco Johnson sitting there in silence, just nodding along because even he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Shannon started by saying the fact that Shedeur Sanders took his very first snap with the starters during the game itself was pure negligence. He said it straight. That is malpractice. Malpractice. And that's not just a loud word. Shannon used it intentionally. That's a legal term you use when a professional fails so badly that they shouldn't be allowed to keep doing their job. And Shannon was saying that's exactly what Kevin Stefanski did to Shedeur Sanders. Shannon didn't stop there. He asked the obvious but important question. At no point did Stefanski think Dillon Gabriel might get hurt. Not once? He didn't think Gabriel could take a hit, tweak a knee, jam a shoulder, or get a concussion? Not once did he think, maybe we should give Shedeur 1 rep with the ones, maybe 2, just in case something happened? And Shannon knows what he's talking about because he lived through this. He explained that even when John Elway was the unquestioned QB1 in Denver, the backup still took a couple reps every practice period. Not because the team expected Elway to fall apart, but because football is unpredictable. Guys get hurt, situations flip, and you need your backup quarterback to be ready for the sake of the entire team.
Once, and I'll say it again, it'll definitely look like Kevin Stefanski said he's not going to play Shedeur, and if he get fired, he getting fired on his own, bro. Like he gonna ride this thing on out. He don't like Shedeur for whatever reason, and he gonna ride it on out. Dillon is his guy, but Shedeur should have got reps, bro. You can't sit up here and tell me that he shouldn't have. There's no way possibly Shedeur should have been out there during the headlights.
But Stefanski didn't do that. Not even close. He ignored Shedeur completely. So when Dillon Gabriel went down, the Browns had to put in a quarterback who had never practiced with the starting receivers, had no timing with the routes, had zero chemistry with the offensive line, and didn't get the Saturday night film sessions that Dillon Gabriel gets every single week. That's the time when a coach sits with his quarterback and figures out his favorite plays, his comfort reads, the stuff he executes best. That's how good teams operate. That's how you maximize your quarterback. But Stefanski couldn't do that with Shedeur because he didn't even know what Shedeur liked. He had no reps, no rhythm, no foundation, nothing. So when Shedeur entered that game, Stefanski was calling plays like he was blindfolded, just hoping something clicked. And predictably, the results were messy. Shedeur's stat line wasn't incredible, but how could it be? He was running an offense built for someone else, with timing he'd never practiced, with receivers who didn't know his rhythm, with a line that didn't know his cadence, and with play calls that didn't match his strengths because the staff had never even evaluated them. And this is the part people need to understand, because the comments always have the same bad take ready to go. Somebody will say, well, Shedeur didn't play well, so maybe that's why the Browns didn't give him reps. But if someone says that, they're missing the entire point. This isn't Madden, and you can't just drop in a quarterback and expect everything to flow like nothing changed. Real football is built on timing, chemistry, rhythm, and repetition. It's about a quarterback knowing that when a receiver hits a 12-yard break, the ball has to be in the air at 10. It's about the offensive line understanding the snap count, the cadence, and when the quarterback uses hard counts to get defenders to jump offside. It's about running backs knowing the mesh point and how the handoff feels in real speed. All of that comes from practice, and Shedeur Sanders didn't get any of it. Shannon Sharpe even broke down a specific play where Shedeur got rocked, and it was the perfect example of the bigger problem. 3 offensive linemen were blocking one defender while another rusher came free untouched and almost blasted Shedeur. Shannon explained exactly what should have happened. The quarterback should have slid the protection left, the guard or center picks up the looping rusher, and everything stays clean. But Shedeur isn't there yet because he hasn't been allowed to get there. He hasn't had the reps. He hasn't built that trust with the offensive line where they follow his protection calls and he trusts their adjustments. That's not Shedeur's fault at all. That falls on Kevin Stefanski and the Browns for letting this situation get out of control. I've been saying for weeks that something in Cleveland looks off when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. And I know some people think I'm being dramatic, but after yesterday, after seeing this whole disaster unfold, I'm more convinced than ever that something behind the scenes is not right. And I'm not the only one noticing the weird patterns. There's the agent situation I talked about before.
But I was thankful to have your permission to be excited. I was in tears. He called me screaming. And I'm crying right now.
The fact that Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have different representation, and all season there have been strange politics around who gets which opportunities. Then there's Stefanski, who seems locked in on making Dillon Gabriel the long-term guy, almost like his job depends on it, which honestly it probably does. When a team drafts a quarterback in the second round and he doesn't pan out, coaches and GMs get blamed hard, and sometimes they lose their jobs over it. So Stefanski is holding on to Gabriel like it's his lifeline, even if it means completely ignoring the development of the quarterback behind him. But here's the wild part. Even if you're not a fan of Shedeur Sanders, even if you believe Gabriel is the better quarterback, even if you fully support Stefanski, you still have to admit this. Not giving your backup quarterback any first-team reps is bad coaching, plain and simple. There's no argument that makes it sound smart, and there's no spin that makes it acceptable. It's just poor management from a football standpoint, and this could hurt Shedeur in the long run. Coach Prime said it himself. He believes the Browns have already damaged Shedeur mentally. When a young quarterback is trying to prove himself and the team around him won't even give him a real chance to practice with the top unit, what do you think that does to a player's confidence? How does that affect his preparation? How does it make him feel about the organization? It creates doubt. It creates frustration. It creates an environment where a player feels like he's pushing against his own team instead of building with them. And that's exactly what the world is watching in Cleveland right now. Let me be clear, I'm not saying Shedeur Sanders is perfect. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame or comparing him to superstars. What I am saying is that he deserves a fair chance. He deserves to be coached right. He deserves the same development every other NFL backup gets. And that is not happening in Cleveland right now, not even close. Now the real question is what comes next? Dillon Gabriel is in concussion protocol, which means Shedeur Sanders could realistically start against the Raiders this week. And if that happens, it's going to be very interesting because for the first time, Stefanski will actually have a full week to work with him. He can finally give him the first team reps he should have had months ago. He can build the game plan around plays Shedeur likes. He can design the offense around his strengths like every good coach does. If Shedeur goes out there and plays great, Stefanski is going to look even worse for not preparing him earlier. If Shedeur struggles, critics will blame him without understanding he's still working with a huge disadvantage. No chemistry, no rhythm, and barely any practice time with the starters. He's got the pedigree, the arm talent, and the football IQ. What he needs now is a coaching staff that actually believes in him and invests in his development. But let's zoom out for a second, because this situation with Shedeur Sanders is bigger than just one quarterback or one franchise. It shines a light on a long-standing problem across the entire NFL. Young quarterbacks, especially rookies, keep getting tossed into impossible situations and then blamed when everything collapses around them. It's a cycle this league has never figured out how to break. Think about how many promising quarterbacks were thrown into chaos and never recovered. David Carr took 76 sacks as a rookie and never had a real chance to grow. Josh Rosen got traded twice in 2 years before he could even unpack his bags. And look at the list of quarterbacks the Browns have drafted over the last 25 years, not named Baker Mayfield. It's rough. This league has a terrible track record when it comes to developing young quarterbacks, and Cleveland has been one of the worst examples. And before Browns fans jump in the comments thinking I'm attacking the franchise, no, this is just reality. Look at the list of quarterbacks Cleveland has burned through since 1999. It's not just unlucky, it's a pattern. The common denominator hasn't been the players. It's been the organization, the coaching changes, the lack of stability, and the absence of any long-term development plan. So when Shedeur Sanders walked into Cleveland, he wasn't walking into a clean slate. He was stepping into a situation that was already messy. The Browns had just signed Dillon Gabriel, who they clearly wanted to be the day one starter. And that's perfectly fine. Nobody is arguing that Shedeur should have started week 1. But to not even give him backup reps? To not prepare him at all? To let him stand on the sideline for 6 months without building timing or chemistry? That's what Shannon Sharpe called organizational malpractice, and he's absolutely right. And let's talk about the comment Coach Prime made, because that one hit deep. That quote about the Browns damaging Shedeur mentally carries weight. Mental confidence is everything for a quarterback. You need to believe you can make every throw. You need to believe your coaches trust you. You need to believe the organization is behind you. And when that belief cracks, it's almost impossible to rebuild. We've seen this happen repeatedly. Marcus Mariota lost his confidence in Tennessee and was never the same. Sam Darnold is still trying to rebuild his career after the Jets mishandled him early on. When a quarterback's mental foundation gets shaken, the road back becomes steep and lonely. And right now, the Browns are playing with fire by acting like Shedeur's development doesn't matter. But let me flip this script for a moment, because I know my audience rides for Shedeur. And honestly, I do too. Despite the chaos, despite the lack of reps, despite being thrown into the fire without proper support, Shedeur still flashed real talent yesterday. He still ripped a few throws that showed why he was a second-round pick. He still competed. He still fought through it. And that tells me something important. The ability is there. The mental toughness is there. The instincts are there. What's missing is the structure. What's missing is the support. And if Shedeur ever gets those things, whether Cleveland finally wakes up or another team steps in through a trade, this kid has a chance to be special. Shannon Sharpe said something else that stuck with me because it's the truth. He said, "It's going to be very interesting this week. If Gabriel is in protocol and Shadow gets the start against the Raiders, he'll get an opportunity to take all the reps, all the ones. And Stefanski will have an idea what he likes and will call plays accordingly." And he's right. This week could be a turning point. If Shedeur gets a full week of practice with the starters, something he should have gotten from day one, Stefanski will finally know what plays fit him best. If Dillon Gabriel can't clear protocol, Shedeur Sanders is about to get his first full week as the true starting quarterback, and that changes everything. He'll finally get all the reps. He'll finally sit down with Kevin Stefanski to go through a real game plan. He'll finally get work with Amari Cooper and the receivers. He'll finally be in meetings with the offensive line working through protections. He'll finally get the preparation he should have been getting since May. And when he goes out there and performs well, it's going to force some uncomfortable questions straight onto Stefanski's desk. Questions like, why didn't you start doing this months ago? Why did it take an injury for you to finally develop your backup quarterback? Why did you put this kid into such a rough situation in the first place? Those are questions Stefanski is going to have to answer. And honestly, I don't think he has good answers at all, because there is no good explanation for what just happened. There's no real defense for not giving Shedeur reps. It was either incompetence, ego, or sabotage. Pick whichever one, and none of them look good. John Harbaugh's comments yesterday were subtle, but they were pointed. When he talked about backup quarterbacks and how a defense prepares for them, he was basically saying, if you're a real organization, your backup should be ready to run your system. That's a direct shot at Cleveland, whether Harbaugh meant it that way or not. The Ravens would never put a backup quarterback in a spot like this. Lamar Jackson's backups always get reps. They always know the system. They're always prepared. That's what strong organizations do. And that's why I keep saying that if things don't change fast, Shedeur might need to get out of Cleveland. Because if this is how they treat him now, what makes anyone think it's magically going to get better later? If Dillon Gabriel gets healthy next week, does Shedeur go right back to getting 0 reps? Are they going to pretend this whole mess never happened? Are we going to see the same dysfunction repeat itself all over again? I hope not. For Shedeur's sake, for the Browns' sake, and honestly for the sake of basic football competency. But I'm not holding my breath. At the end of the day, the most frustrating part of this entire situation is that it never had to go like this. Shedeur Sanders is a gifted young quarterback with a Hall of Fame father who's coached him, guided him, and prepared him. He's played in big games. He's handled pressure. He's shown he has the tools to succeed in the NFL. What he needs is an organization willing to invest in him and a coaching staff committed to developing him. And right now, Cleveland is not giving him that. So here's what I want from you. Jump into the comments and tell me what you think. Should Shedeur demand a trade? Do you think the Browns are sabotaging him on purpose? Or is this just typical Cleveland chaos happening all over again? And if you were Shedeur Sanders, how would you handle this situation? Because if I were him, I'd be having some very serious conversations with my agent right now. I'd be looking at other teams, seeing which organizations actually develop quarterbacks and which ones just chew them up and spit them out. And Cleveland is starting to look like the second one, more and more each week. But here's the part that gives me hope. Shedeur has Prime in his corner. He's got Shannon Sharpe speaking truth on national TV. He's got people like me who have been around him and know exactly what he brings as a player and a person. The truth is out now. The NFL is seeing what's happening. And if the Browns don't fix this situation soon, another team absolutely will. So that's where we're at, fam. John Harbaugh exposed Kevin Stefanski without even trying. Coach Prime is emotional and rightfully fired up. Shannon Sharpe called the whole thing malpractice. And Shedeur Sanders is stuck in the middle of an organizational disaster that isn't his fault. But here's what I believe. I believe in this kid. I believe he's going to overcome this. I believe he's going to prove every doubter wrong. The only question left is simple. Will that happen in Cleveland or will it happen somewhere else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you think Shedeur Sanders deserves better. Share this video so more people can see what's happening. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because I'm covering this story all week. If Dillon Gabriel can't go against the Raiders, you know I'll be breaking down every single snap Shedeur takes. This story is nowhere near finished. The Shedeur Sanders saga in Cleveland is just getting started, and I'll be here for all of it. Now hit like, comment, share, and subscribe, and shake the haters off. Peace out.